Good morning, everybody. So let's begin with the part which is left out in animal kingdom, and that was the next phylum we have to take up, that is phylum Arthropoda. Now Arthropoda, the word itself means which have jointed appendages, right? So jointed appendages are appearing for the first time in the animal kingdom here, and these are arthropods. You know, they are cosmopolitan. They are found in all types of habitat, marine, freshwater, as well as terrestrial habitats, and like insects which have wings, which they are aerial as well. Now the most important feature that they have, that is exoskeleton of chitin, which is a polysaccharide, you know, and along with that chitin there are proteins and calcium salts making it so hard. Okay, and it is this exoskeleton of chitin which is the reason behind their success on land and so many other habitats, right? And this is the largest phylum of the animal kingdom, and Insecta is the largest class. Insecta is the largest class of Arthropoda, and as your book has mentioned that 2/3 of the named species belong to Arthropoda. Then next thing, body is divisible into head, thorax and abdomen. Head, thorax and abdomen. Now these of course have complete digestive tract, which we had started right from Aschelminthes, so this will continue. Complete digestive tract. Respiration. For respiration, different structures are there because some are living in water. For that they have gills, or some have book gills. Then there is another one, book lungs, and there are tracheal system, or just trachea we can mention, and they have open blood vascular system, open blood vascular system with dorsal tubular heart. So this is another important criteria to distinguish a chordate from a non-chordate. You see, in case of chordates the heart is ventral, here the heart is dorsal in position. Then excretion by, it could be Malpighian tubules or green glands or coxal glands. Okay, then nervous system is just like that of the annelids. In the case of annelids we had seen that there is double ventral solid nerve cord. Okay, then here the receptors are more well developed, compound eyes and all that we'll be doing with cockroach anyways. These are dioecious, the sexes are separate, and development once again can be indirect or direct. Indirect or direct, and the examples we can take is Pelemon, which is prawn, Cancer, that is crab. So these are the crustaceans you see. Then Palamnius, this one is scorpion, and in scorpion you see the scorpion females are viviparous. That means they are not laying eggs, rather they are giving birth to young ones. And then if we talk about some of the important insects like apis, this is honeybee, bombyx morai, this is the silkworm. Now these are useful insects. Another one, laxifer, this is lac insect. The secretion produced by the female insect is used to prepare jewelries, or even using the lac, which is to seal the parcels and all. Yes, Shreya, book gills, book lungs, this is not required. This is just that within the gills there are number of fine lamellae, membranous structures arranged just like the leaves of a book. That's why such a name is used for it. And in book lungs it is the exchange of air directly from the atmosphere, and in book gills it would be dissolved oxygen is taken from water. And then next thing, and guys, I really want you to be focused because we are going to prepare for the NEET exam. It's not a research, okay? So another one, that is some of the vectors of the disease. So the mosquitoes like Anopheles, Culex, Aedes, these are the mosquitoes. Then of course, one very interesting example we have Limulus, which is a living fossil, commonly called king crab. It's a very primitive organism still surviving. And another one you can mention, which is once again in the NCERT, Locusta. This is an insect. It is a gregarious pest because they move in huge groups. They damage the crops. So they move in huge groups. Yes, all arthropods have chitinous exoskeleton. That is for all arthropods. Okay. And so arthropods, you will find they are free living, they are parasitic. So many forms of life they have taken up, all types of habitat they are inhabiting. Okay, so that is and that all became possible because of the exoskeleton that they have. Okay, so this will do for arthropoda. Few other details typically of arthropods that we will do with the type study, because we have to study the morphology of cockroach. So once this chapter is over, we will be talking about cockroach, and there some more details will be taken up. As far as Animalia is concerned, this much is sufficient. Okay, so I hope this side of the board you have taken up. So we can move to next phylum, which is the second largest phylum, and that one is Mollusca. Phylum Mollusca. Now word Mollusca means soft bodied. So these are soft bodied animals. Then, so in this, these are also found in marine water as well as fresh water and on land as well. So here their body is divisible into head, visceral hump or visceral mass also it is called, and there is a ventral foot which is muscular, and it is modified for swimming, creeping on the substratum or catching their prey, so on. And this visceral hump is covered by this is on the dorsal side, and it is covered by mantle, which is double fold of tissue. Basically in this tissue there are two epithelial layers, and in between there is connective tissue. So that double fold of tissue, that is the mantle, and it is this mantle which secretes the shell. Mantle secretes the shell, and the shell here is calcareous, So this is a calcareous covering which is protecting the body. This is a calcareous shell secreted by the mantle. You see, Sohini, you have put up that head is distinct in the arthropods. That is right. And from here, this development of head which has begun, that is the beginning, and from there means the distinct head from the rest of the body. So that continues with the later phyla also. Okay. So next thing, that is coming to the rest of the structures. Now below the mantle there is a cavity which is called mantle cavity. Okay. So gills are present in mantle cavity. In mantle cavity, and this is below the mantle, okay, between the mantle and the visceral hump. And in this, these gills have respiratory functions, of course everybody knows that is there, but in the NCERT you will find they have also mentioned excretory functions, because gills are so thin layered that through that if oxygen and carbon dioxide can diffuse, so why not ammonia not diffuse, right? So even ammonia would be diffusing out into the water through it. Visceral hump, it is so called because it is in the okay, just a sec, and excretory functions. Okay, excretory functions. So here I'm rubbing the other side. If you see this animal, any mollusk, you will find that they have a head, and after the head there is this hump like structure on the dorsal side. This hump is, within this hump actually all the visceral organs, that is their digestive system and their heart, body cavity, all that is present within it. And then here this is the ventral foot, and this side of course this is the mantle cavity. And here this hump is covered by mantle, and mantle is secreting the shell. So you see this would be the shell, and here the covering would be the mantle, and this entire area is the visceral hump. And here this space is mantle cavity. This is the foot, this is the head here. Okay, so I think you will get that. And yes, more or less these are sufficient what for animalia we are doing. Otherwise I'll keep telling you what else you would need to read. Otherwise just the I have told you earlier, for the last 5-6 years question papers you will solve the past papers of NEET, so that will add on to your knowledge. Okay. And coxal glands are just one type of excretory organ that we find in case of spiders and scorpions, and through that of course their wastes are being removed. So this is one. Then if we talk about the digestive system, that is complete, of course we needn't write it, but one very important structure that you do get question, which is for this phylum only, that is radula. Radula, this is a chitinous rasping organ. Rasping is, that is for grating, they will be literally grating the food with it. So chitinous rasping organ in mouth cavity. So this is very important, because radula in the entire animal kingdom we won't find anywhere other where. Okay, so inside the mouth cavity this radula is there, with which they will be grating the food. But this also there is an exception. An exception is this radula is absent. Radula absent in bivalves. Bivalves. Bivalve is one of the class of mollusca, although classes are not in the syllabus. You can get the example here, like unio. You will get example unio. These are the oysters, clams, this group where two shells are present and they are attached at a hinge, in which even you have the pearl oysters. So that group of class, means that class of mollusca, that is the one where radula is absent. They are filter feeders actually. Okay, so anyway this will do. Respiration just now by gills we have already mentioned. Excretion, NCERT has not mentioned any organ. They have just simply mentioned excretion by gills only, but there are organs here. So excretion by a structure very similar to nephridia that we had studied in Annelida, and this nephridia are also called organs of Bojanus. Organs of Bojanus. Okay, and here these are dioecious. These animals are dioecious. However, there are few are hermaphrodite also. Okay, so few of them, they have sexes are united. So usually dioecious we can write, and fertilization is also usually in external, but there is internal ones also. Okay, fertilization is usually external, and development also once again can be direct or indirect. Development direct, like octopus, they have direct development, or the other ones they have indirect development, like the snails, oysters that we just now talked about, they have indirect development. Organ of Bojanus is just the name for this metanephridia. So metanephridia is the organ of excretion, and Bojanus, of course, you can see it's the name of the scientist who must have described it. Okay, so nephridia are structures in which there would be one end to collect the waste, just like very similar you can compare with our nephron. There is one end to collect the waste, that is the Bowman's capsule, and it will pass through a long tube through which some part will be absorbed, some part will be secreted. Okay, and then remaining will be passing out through another end, and that's how this primitive kind of structures are there. So these are the nephridia. Okay, so we'll just mention the examples of the mollusca. Examples: Pila, that is apple snail; Unio, this is freshwater bivalve, just now I told you about. Okay, then Aplysia, this is sea hare, common name. Okay, Dentalium, this is elephant's tusk shell, because the shape is in the like that of elephant's tusk. Okay, Chaetopleura or chiton. Octopus, this is devilfish. And with octopus, one another interesting thing that you need to remember is that here the mantle is quite thick, and rather this is the, in this case the shell is absent. Okay, and so this many things will do about mollusca. After mollusca we can move to our next phylum, that is phylum Echinodermata. Now Echinodermata, that word literally means spiny skinned animals. Okay, and these echinoderms, first thing and another important thing you can always remember, exclusively marine. And with this you need to remember which was the earlier one phylum we had mentioned which was exclusively marine. Try to remember and you can write the answer. Okay, so and from here there is a paradigm shift, you see. Now the animals are, from here they are deuterostomic, that is during the development. Mouth will be formed later, anus will form first. Then coelom, true coelom is of enterocoelom type, so enterocoelomic. Okay, triploblastic, of course, we started with platyhelminthes, same thing will go on. Then another usual question that you get about them is symmetry, because symmetry here is very strange, because in this the larvae are bilaterally symmetrical, and the adults, they show radial symmetry. Okay, so let people note, then let me see. This is just the diagram for a mollusk. This is a generalized diagram. All mollusks will not have this because there are some modifications in the foot structure or maybe in the head structure. Okay, but this is a generalized hypothetical mollusk diagram, and it is given in all the books. Even earlier it was in the 9th NCERT. So the three parts of the body are being shown, that is the head, visceral hump, and here on the ventral side the foot. The visceral hump is covered by mantle, which is secreting the shell, and below this mantle there is a mantle cavity in which the gills are located. All the internal organs, their digestive system, nephridia just now we talked about, all that will be inside this visceral hump. And foot is variously modified for swimming, creeping, catching prey, so on, right? And within the here the mouth cavity would be inside, and within this mouth cavity there is radula. So this much is all I am doing here. Ctenophora, yes, right. The other phylum that we mentioned, which is exclusively marine, that is Ctenophora, absolutely correct. Okay, so with echinoderms, this was one important thing that is undergoing a change. There is so much about their symmetry, usual questions that you get. And then one more thing here which is arising for the first time you see, that is a mesodermal endoskeleton, which will continue till us. Our bones and cartilage is also mesodermal. Okay, so mesodermal endoskeleton in the form of calcareous ossicles, in the form of calcareous ossicles. Now ossicles term we use for smaller structures, so it's not bone as yet, but number of flattened calcareous hardenings are there, and over this these are giving off spines as well. Okay, so this is the one which will be protruding out through the body, and that's how they get the spiny appearance. Okay, so mesodermal endoskeleton arises for the first time. And another important thing that is specific to this particular phylum, that is water vascular system. Water vascular system, where water flows through. Now here there are some canals within the body, but those are mesodermal canals. So this is a comparison that you get with the water canal system that we found in sponges. So this water vascular system here, all of it, the entire system is mesodermal in origin. Mesodermal in origin. And in this, one of the structure, that is tube feet, are help in locomotion. Then not only locomotion, also catching the prey. Okay, catching the prey. And then of course when water is moving through this canals, there will be exchange of gases, so respiration, removal of ammonium, so that would be excretion. This is there. So you see 4 functions we can list out which are associated with water vascular system, that is catching the food, locomotion, respiration and excretion. And this would be a comparative question with the water canal system. Now in the water canal system, these 3 functions were common, but locomotion was not there because they are the poriferans are sessile. And then in poriferans, the other function was, the 4th function was the helping in reproduction. Dispersal of sperms was taking place through the canal system. Here water vascular system has nothing to do with reproduction. So this is the only question that you get actually. The details of the water vascular system have never ever been asked in the exam. Okay. So then next thing, few things we can mention. The rest of the here there is no specialized structure for excretion, so we can always mention that excretory system is absent. Ammonia directly diffuses out through the body and through these tube feet and all. Okay, so excretory system is absent. Once again, nervous system, you see, since the adults are radially symmetrical, so they are not having any brain. So there is nervous system is diffuse type. Nervous system is diffuse type, no brain. Okay, and then these animals are also dioecious, that is sexes are separate. These are dioecious. There is external fertilization, and of course it goes without saying that development, yes, whoever has mentioned deuterostomic and enterocoelomic, please refer to the first lecture. We have done this in quite detail about these terms, deuterostomic, enterocoelomic, in the first or the second lecture, where I had taken the basis for classification. Okay, and I told you those are the most important part of the chapter. Okay, so if you have joined in late, please refer to those, or take it up in the doubt class when we go on, which we take on Saturdays. So anyway, external fertilization. Now this, without saying that there must be, since the larva is bilaterally symmetrical, so that means this development is indirect. Development is indirect, and here the example is Asterias, which is starfish. For a starfish, at least I would like to write the name of the larva. The larva is Bipinnaria brachiolaria. Actually there are two larvae, one after the other. They go through two larval stages before becoming the adult. And with Asterias, another very important function we can mention, that they have the ability to excise away their arm if they have they see an enemy. So they, to protect themselves, they'll break off their arm. That is called autotomy. Autotomy, that is self-mutilation. Self-mutilation, where one arm is severed from the body. Okay, so that the rest of the organism is saved. Then the other one, that is Ophiura. Ophiura is brittle star. Brittle star. Then you have Echinus. Echinus, this is sea urchin. Cucumaria, this is sea cucumber. So this has a cucumber like body. Okay, that's why such a name has been given to it. And Antedon, this is sea lily, or also called feather star. Feather star. Okay, so I have not taken the classes, but there are 5 classes in Echinodermata which are not in syllabus, but from each class I have given you one member in the example. Okay, so Shreya, yes, exactly, de-cephalization will occur because the symmetry is changing from bilateral to radial. And yes, echinoderms are, that's why, considered as a puzzle to all the taxonomists, that at one end it is so evolved that it is having enterocoelom just like chordates, deuterostomy condition like chordates, but at the other end it is not having such structures, right? So it is considered as a puzzle, and that is also one thing you should see, that evolution doesn't go in a straight line. And in a way we can say that it is retrogressive evolution, exactly, Kanika. And I have mentioned it, Ashmeet, excretory system is absent. You can read it here. Excretory system is absent in the echinoderms. And so there is no well defined structure. It is just going along with the water. It's flowing out with the water, the ammonia. Okay. And yes, the arm does get regenerated, Shreya, in case of Asterias when it sheds it. Okay. So we come to our last phylum of non-chordates, last phylum, and that is hemichordata. So here we have phylum hemichordata, which is also called now as a stomochordata. Now this one is also exclusively marine. So with this, now you have 3 phyla which are exclusively marine. So these are worm-like structures. Earlier they were classified with chordata. That's why the name chordata is there. It was one of the subphylum of the phylum chordata. But then it has been removed and given the status of a phylum among the non-chordates. The reason being, because earlier there was a structure in it which was supposed to be, which was thought to be a notochord, but it was not. So that's what is stomochord. I'll just mention this thing. So stomochord. So this is a ectodermal structure. Once again you see notochord is mesodermal. Now this is a ectodermal structure in buccal cavity. And this was the one which was earlier confused with notochord. Okay, so it is not notochord. And stome word, you know, I told you the meaning, that stome means mouth. So in the buccal cavity there is this thick fold of the epithelium which is actually ectodermal in origin, and this was confused with notochord. So it's not notochord. And then otherwise it is also deuterostomic, enterocoelomate, deuterostomic, enterocoelomate. Okay, now these have an open blood vascular system, open circulatory system. The circulatory system for echinoderms I didn't take up because it is highly reduced. Maximum function is done by the water vascular system itself. So whatever is there, it is of the open category only. So here it is open circulatory system. Then respiration is by gills. Excretion, this one NCERT has mentioned, excretion is by proboscis gland. And here the sexes are separate, that is dioecious, external fertilization, and there is a larva which is, so indirect development with Tornaria larva. This is the name of the larva. And example of course is balanoglossus. And these balanoglossus, saccoglossus, many of them are there, and these are called acorn worms. This is the common name given to them. And in this topic, especially in Animalia, try to see wherever there are common names, okay? Because many a times you get questions just on this, the scientific name of the animal, and on the other side we have the common names, where one of the common name would be incorrectly given and you have to choose the incorrect pair, or maybe the other way around, choosing the correct pair likewise. So do focus on that wherever we have a common name written. Okay, so this completes with the non-chordates. Now we'll move on to next one, that is phylum chordata. Phylum chordata. Now chordata, they have 4 important features, okay, 4 hallmarks you can say of chordates. That is important. Okay, so first one we can mention notochord. Notochord we have already described. It is mesodermally derived flexible rod on the mid dorsal side. Okay, so presence of notochord at any stage of life cycle. It can later get replaced by vertebral column, doesn't matter, but if it is there in the embryonic life, then too we'll take the animal as chordate. Notochord. Then there is nerve cord. Now nerve cord is single dorsal, hollow, okay, structure. So that is a difference you see from tongue worm is also given. Exactly, that's right. Balanoglossus is also called tongue worm. That is absolutely correct. If you will see the diagram of this one, you will see the proboscis is almost in the shape of a tongue, and that's why such a name is also given. Yes, tongue worm also. Okay, so nerve cord, that is single, hollow, dorsal, and this will develop into our spinal cord and the brain. This is ectodermal. All nervous structure you know are ectodermal. Only thing is you have to remember there is a diagram of in the NCERT chordate, hypothetical chordate, maybe embryonic stage you can say. So nerve cord is above the notochord. Okay, so this is above. It is also mid dorsal, but it is above the notochord. Above the notochord. Okay, then lateral paired pharyngeal gill slits. Okay, lateral pharyngeal gill slits, and last but not the least, post anal tail. Post anal tail, because after all chordates evolved in aqueous medium, and this provided the proper for the propulsion in the water. Okay, so these are 4 very important criteria to consider an animal among the chordata. Okay, so I'll just put a brief classification of chordata so that many of the things you will be able to do from there itself. This side hemichordata, this side I am removing. Okay, so you see chordata, which is a phylum. Now this is divided into 3 subphylum. One is Urochordata, which is also called tunicata. Urochordata or tunicata. Then another subphylum is Cephalochordata. And last but not the least, it is the vertebrata. Vertebrata, the name vertebrata comes from that notochord in the embryonic life, which is there, will be replaced, or it will be converting into the vertebral column. So where the vertebral column gets developed, those are called vertebrata. Now here, these two together, these two, you can also take them as, they are also called protochordates. So this is not this is a superficial group, but sometimes you get the name like this also, protochordates. Then these do not have a brain case. Okay, so the cranium like we have, they are not having that. So we can also use the term acraniata for them. Acraniata. And these, both of them, urochordates and cephalochordates, these are exclusively marine, found only in the marine water, right? And here, of course, rest you can understand that notochord is not going to be replaced by vertebral column. Now the vertebrates, they do have the cranium, so here we can use the term for them, craniata. So vertebrata can also be called craniata because of the brain box. That is our inbuilt helmet around the brain, which is to be protected. Okay, so here this vertebrata, we can first group it into agnatha. These are divisions. Some authors take it as division, some authors take it as section. Anything will do, because division otherwise is used in plant classification, but their division is equivalent to the animal phylum. Here we are taking it under the subphylum. Okay, so anyway, agnatha, and the other is gnathostomata. Now agnatha, these are jawless, they don't have a jaw, jawless vertebrates. And gnatho word you see, it comes for jaw, so these are the jawed vertebrates. So gnathostomata. In agnatha we have only one living class, and that is class Cyclostomata. Class Cyclostomata. Okay. In Gnathostomata, then further we classify them into first superclasses, two superclasses. One is Pisces and the other is Tetrapoda. And here you can very well see that from the name itself, Pisces word comes for fishes, so where they have fins, while Tetrapoda, tetra is four, podos is appendages, so they have the limbs, the forelimbs and the hind limbs. So that's how the terms are. And in this we have two classes. One is the cartilage fish, Chondrichthyes, and the other is the bony fish, Osteichthyes. Chondrichthyes and Osteichthyes. And in Tetrapoda we have four classes: Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves and Mammalia. These four are tetrapods. Okay. So this is the overall classification you have now at one place for chordata. Okay. So in this, with Urochordata, not much is to be done. Just a few things I'll mention, because which is again important for your exam, that is Urochordata. In this you see the word Euro means tail. So why this particular subphylum has been so named? Because the most important chordate character, that is notochord. Notochord is present only in the tail. Okay. Yes, let me see. Shubham, I think I am taking up that part only now. Okay, the two protochordates. So urochordates, you see the tail. So here the notochord is notochord present only in larval tail. Okay, and as the larva matures into adult, so just like you have seen the development of a tadpole to a frog, the tail is lost. Same way here also the tail is lost, and with the tail the most important chordate character also gets lost. So the adult is without that chordate character. So adult is primitive. That's why here the metamorphosis is termed retrogressive. Retrogressive means going back. Okay. So here the larva is advanced while the adult is primitive. Retrogressive metamorphosis. So here we can always mention larva is more advanced than the adult. Is more advanced than adult. So this is one important question that you get from this particular group, Urochordata. And the second one is regarding the circulatory system. So the entire group of chordates, the entire phylum of chordates has closed circulatory system, right? Closed system. The only exception is Urochordata. So this, and wherever there is exception, that becomes an important question, right? So here the circulatory system is open type, open circulatory system. Okay. Then I can also mention about excretion. Excretion is by neural gland. I think this our NCERT also has given. So those things you should anyways know. Neural gland, and rest of the things are, that will suffice. So example here is Ascidia, Herdmania. Yes, and with this Ascidia, Herdmania, we can also use the common names. These are called sea potato, sea squirts, because they have one siphon through which they will be squirting water. That's why such a name is given to them. Salpa, Doliolum, this many will do. Okay. So just two important things you need to remember about these Urochordates, and of course the examples. Then coming to the Cephalochordata. So I hope you have taken this classification. So I can take the next subphylum, that is Cephalochordata. subphylum Cephalochordata. Okay, Cephalochordata. Now cephalic word you see comes for head. So here the notochord extends from head to tail. That's why the name is there. Okay, so notochord from head to tail. Okay, and they have all the 4 chordate characters all through the life. So that's why it is considered as a blueprint of chordates, because we can see that the earliest chordates from which the later complex forms, that is vertebrates, evolved, that must have been the cephalochordates. So it's just a tiny animal, the size of the animal, the size of the finger, and it is showing all the important chordate characters. Okay, so this one shows all chordate characters. Okay, then here, from here closed blood vascular system starts. Okay, so closed circulatory system, although they don't have a heart, so they are heartless creatures, you see. So no heart. Excretion is by solenocytes, which are very similar to flame cells that we had studied in case of flatworms. Platyhelminthes, we had mentioned that there is, the excretion is by flame cells. So here also the solenocyte is exactly similar to that. Okay, and sometimes with respiration you will find a question. That's an interesting question, because pharyngeal gill slits are present, but respiration is not through them. Rather, respiration is through just the body surface, because these gill slits initially they were meant for filter feeding. So you see, even these chordates, when they evolved, they were filter feeders, taking in water through the mouth, and here on the pharynx the slits are there, water will be going out through the slits, while whatever particulate food matter is present in the food will be taken up by lot of mucus in the mouth cavity. So that will be trapped by the mucus, and rest of the water will be filtered out. So here also pharyngeal gill slits are present, but they are meant for feeding. Rather, respiration is through the general body surface. Okay, so respiration is through general body surface, and rest of the things you can see it is easy. So here once again here sexes are separate, and the example is branchiostoma, that is Amphioxus. Common name is Amphioxus. Earlier Amphioxus was the scientific name, but now Amphioxus is taken as a common name, and these are also called lancelet or lanceworm, like that we can use the term. And since here I have mentioned sexes are separate, that these are dioecious, I think you can add on to urochordate that urochordates are hermaphrodite. They are, the sexes are not separate, they are hermaphrodite. Okay, why are urochordates called tunicata? Shreya, that is because of a tunic. Tunic is an outer covering, as you see, you must have seen in the old Roman soldiers, they used to wear that. So here they have a tunic which is made up of a compound called tunicin, which is very similar to cellulose. So that again is a great exception here, because cellulose is characteristic only of plants, and here we have an animal which is having a cellulose covering. So that is there, the outer epidermis. Epidermis secretes a tunic which is made up of this tunicin. Okay, so that is the reason they get this name. So we can remove this one, subphylum. Now from here we will move on to the subphylum Vertebrata. Subphylum Vertebrata. Now in vertebrata, few things which are common to all vertebrates, I can compile it here itself instead of writing every time with reptiles, birds, mammals. Like one is of course complete digestive tract, we needn't write for all of them. Complete digestive tract, okay. Closed circulatory system, And here with the circulatory system, there is also always there is a ventral heart. Ventral heart, which is 2, 3 or 4 chambered. Okay. And another thing that we can mention here is RBCs for the first time are appearing in the blood. So RBC is present for carrying oxygen and carbon dioxide, and they are enclosing all that hemoglobin, and these RBCs are nucleated in all vertebrates except nucleated in all vertebrates except, of course, you know very well that is the mammals, right? So mammals have enucleated or without nucleus RBCs, while rest, Pisces, reptiles, birds, amphibians, all of them, they are having nucleated RBCs. So this is here itself. Then of course excretion is by kidneys in all of them, all vertebrates. So excretion by kidneys. And so this was something which was common for all of them, so we needn't write it again and again. And from here then I'll move on to the agnathes, that is the jawless vertebrates. And in the jawless vertebrates, as I told you, there is only one living class, and we'll be taking up that cyclostomata. Cyclostomata. Cyclostomata, the word comes from stome. Again, you see the stome term comes from mouth. Cyclos is circular. So they have a round, circular, suctorial mouth. That's why the name to this phylum. Name to this class, cyclostomata. So these are ectoparasites on fishes. Ectoparasites on fishes. Devoid of any scales. Their body is not covered by any scales. Okay, so devoid of scales. They don't have any paired fins. So paired fins are also absent. So only unpaired fins will be present. Okay. And so let me clear this side now. And these have been the questions which have appeared for this group. Then 6 to 15 pairs of gill slits without operculum. Now operculum, you see, is the gill cover. Okay, so gill cover is not there. So 6 to 15 pairs of gill slits. So if you see this animal, what you will find is it's almost cylindrical eel-like body. Here let us make the circular mouth, and this is how the body goes. Here this will be the gill slits. Okay, the eye we can make here, nostril, and the fins are of course just the unpaired fins like this. Okay, so this is how the usual animal is. Yes, heart, you see, is basically a modified blood vessel only. Okay, so the wall of the heart is having muscles. So if heart is not there in such a tiny animal, the blood vessels are having muscle on their surface, means on their wall, and that much is sufficient to cause the blood to flow by the contraction and relaxation of these muscles. Okay. Pooja, the blood doesn't have only RBCs, it does have WBCs also. So if we are taking somebody's blood to find out the DNA, so that means we are taking out that DNA from the nucleus of WBCs. Okay, so anyway, this is how the animal is. And Ostracodermae is not to be done, because Ostracodermae is a group of agnathans which is extinct. It is no longer there, so you don't have to do that class. Okay, so anyway, here we will see here in this case rest of the things. So they have single, here you see there is single median nostril, single median nostril, And in this one very important example that you have, let me first write that example, Petromyzon. Petromyzon, this is called lamprey. Now this lampreys, the male and female, migrate from ocean to river at the time of their, in the time of their breeding season. So migrate from ocean to the river, and this type of migration is called anadromous migration. Anadromous migration, and this once again was a question in the NEET exam where the 4 cyclostomes, the names were given and you were asked to find, choose the one which shows migration. So here the adults, they would be migrating to the river, and once they reach to the river, they will release their gametes. The female will be releasing the eggs, the male would be releasing the sperms. So there is external fertilization, and then the adults will die. So it's a one-way movement. The adults, they won't be returning to the ocean. Okay, so they'll die over there. Their larva will develop, which will stay for some time in the river for the development time, and then it will swim to the ocean. Okay, and that larva is ammocoete larva. Okay, so ammocoete larva swims back to ocean. Swims back to ocean. Okay, so these petromyzons, they begin their life in river, in the fresh water, and they end their life also in the fresh water. And the other example in this particular class is myxine. Now myxine is commonly called hagfish. Now myxine is quite primitive. It's more primitive than the petromyzon, or in other words you can say among vertebrates the most primitive living vertebrate is myxine, and myxine doesn't migrate. Okay, so this one here, the sexes are also not separate, they are hermaphrodite and do not they remain in the marine habitat, they do not migrate, remain in ocean, no migration. Okay, so this was the question which were there in the NEET exam, where they had given myxine, some other genus of the myxines also like neomyxine, Eptatratus, these 3 were there, and one option of course was petromyzon. So you should be very clear that out of the cyclostomes, all cyclostomes are not showing anadromous migration. It is only the lampreys which show the migration. Okay. So these are the usual questions that you get from this group, and once there was a question regarding the scales and the paired fins, so this was there. Now coming to our next part, that is the superclass Pisces. One thing more I can add on, in this particular group cyclostomes, endoskeleton, their endoskeleton is of cartilage. Okay, so it's not bone as yet, it is still cartilage, cartilaginous endoskeleton. Okay, now coming to superclass Pisces. Now these are actually the true fish. So normally fish is one term which we use for any organism found in the water, like even octopus is called devilfish, or even a coelenterate jellyfish, but actually the fish is belonging to this superclass Pisces. Now these have both paired as well as unpaired fins. So paired fins are 2 of them, that is just like in our case you can relate to the limbs, the pectoral and the pelvic girdle to which the limbs are attached. Same way the fins here are called the pectoral and pelvic fins. Pectoral and the pelvic fins, these are the paired ones. And then there are unpaired fins. Unpaired fins are the dorsal fin on the dorsal side of the body, mid dorsally it would be present, dorsal fin, ventral fin, and the caudal or the tail fin. So these are the unpaired ones. Then these have scales on the body, and these scales are mesodermal scales. Okay, mesodermal, you may get a term mesodermal or dermal, doesn't matter, it's one and the same, because after all dermal means coming from the dermis. So So in our skin or any vertebrate for that sake, the upper layer, that is epidermis is ectodermal, and below that epidermis there is dermis, which is made up of connective tissue, and it is very much mesodermal. So if it is mesodermal or dermal, that would be right. So these are mesodermal scales, and these are not dead scales. So this is one comparison we'll take, the scale of the fish and the scale of the reptiles. The scale of the reptiles are from the epidermis. Those are keratinized, those are dead. So those will be sloughing off from the body and new scales will come up. But these scales, they are not shed. They will grow as the fish grows, and we can even find the age of the fish by studying those scales, because there would be lines of growth on that scale, just like you have annual rings in the trees, right? So these are living scales and are not shed. Okay, so this is one, and rest of the things, the two classes that we have in Pisces, we have to study. There is another class, Placodermi. Once again, I am not mentioning it because that one is extinct. So for question point of view, you have to study only two of them, and those are the chondrichthyes and the osteichthyes. So and there once again, more important is the difference between the two. Okay, so I'll take it both of the classes together, taking the important differences between them. So I think if you have taken this side, and so I can clear the board, and so that I can take the differences simultaneously, because that will serve the purpose in solving the questions. Okay, so I'm going to remove this side. Let me clear the board. Okay, so here you see the two classes. Here one is chondrichthyes and the other is osteichthyes. And you see this term ichthys comes for fish. Okay, so that's why study of fish is ichthyology. Now these are marine, first thing, and these are found in both marine as well as freshwater. Okay, and this is a much larger group. And you see among, yes Tushar, Ammoseat is the name of the larva of lampreys. Okay, so this is you will see in the ecology portion in the NCERT, although that's from botany, but anyway I'm just relating it here. The largest group or the largest diversity among the vertebrates is of fishes. So this is the largest group among vertebrates. Now this one has cartilage endoskeleton, and this one has bony endoskeleton. Okay, cartilage and bony endoskeleton. Here the scales are placoid scales, which are mesodermal, which I have already mentioned, and these are very similar to the teeth. Okay, so they are considered to be, since the origin is same, because teeth are also major part of the teeth, you know, is mesodermal. It is only the enamel which is ectodermal. So if the origin is same, it is homologous, but the function here is of course differing. Teeth will be in the jaw for catching the prey, while over the body the scales are providing protection. Okay, so placoid scales, here the type of scales are cycloid or tenoid scales. So different type of a scale. Cycloid, they are circular with circular rings like that. Okay, so next thing we can then mention, these have 5 to 7 pairs of gill slits, 5 to 7 pairs of gill slits, while here, and okay, one more thing we can mention, without operculum, no gill cover. Okay, and here it is 4 pairs of gills. So I won't write slits because we can't see the slits from outside, because that part is covered by a gill cover. Okay, gills covered by operculum. Then here the mouth is ventral mouth. Try to remember a shark. if you see the head of the shark, here at the tip the mouth is not there, rather the mouth is here on the ventral side and with the sharp teeth, we can imagine it here, right? So that is the ventral mouth. Here it is terminal mouth. Terminal mouth, that is here, it is just at the tip here, okay? All vertebrates are dioecious. No, because there are some of them which show sequential hermaphroditism, Srinidhi. They change their sex, because once there are certain fish which at the youngest age they are males, but as they grow older they become females. So that is why it is called sequential hermaphroditism. So simultaneously they won't be hermaphrodite. I am just coming to that, claspers, Sri Krishna, okay? So this is there. Then tail is heterocircle. Heterocircle tail fin. Heterocircle tail fin. Now heterocircle tail fin is that if you see their tail fin, you will find that one lobe is large, one lobe is small. So this is hetero, comes for different. Here it is homocircle. Homocircle tail fin, where like this, or the two lobes are equal. Now since you have asked that question, claspers, because that is also from the external morphology, we can see that here the males, in the males the ventral fin has elongated processes from it which are called claspers, which are copulatory organs, okay? So males have claspers on ventral fin, sorry, not ventral fin, sorry, pelvic fins, on pelvic fins. So it is a paired structure, you see, on pelvic fins, and this is for copulation. And here no such structure is present, okay? So that is one point of difference. And so I think Sri Krishna, now your question is clear, okay? And another important, very important feature that you get is regarding swim bladders. So swim bladder here, swim bladder also called air bladder, okay? So these are paired structure, one pair swim bladder, if it is there it will be there. So swim bladders absent. Here swim bladder is absent and here swim bladder is present. Swim bladder present. Now you see swim bladder, what it does is that the fish can fill it with gas, and with this it can float, and that way the fish can sleep also. So they are just passively floating in water, just like you take a tube in the swimming pool and just remain there passively floating, not swimming. While this group, chondrichthyes, they have to continuously keep on swimming, otherwise they are going to sink. So they never sleep, they are continuously swimming due to the absence of swim bladders, okay? So this is one point of difference, and one or two more differences let me mention, and then we will be through with this. So let me take off few points. Another thing that we can mention is, here we mention one particular structure, that is ampulla of Lorenzini. Ampulla of Lorenzini. So these are sensory structures on the snout area, on the front area, and these are basically taken as you can say thermoreceptors on snout, okay? While here no such structure is present. And then here cloaca is present. Now you see, cloaca is a structure in which the urinary tract, the digestive tract, and maybe even the reproductive tract open. So that structure is cloaca. Here once again cloaca is absent, okay? And since we have mentioned about excretion, one another interesting thing we can mention here, because normally you think that if the animal is aquatic, so it would be amonotelic, but here this one is ureotelic, you see. It excretes urea, while of course bony fish are amonotelic, okay? And rest, of course, direct development is in both of them, so there is nothing to write about it. So here fertilization, you can make out that since there is organ for copulation, so fertilization is going to be internal. Fertilization is internal. Yes, Saida, the bony fish, they do sleep, okay, but not the cartilage fish. So I keep telling my students that you should be thankful that at least sharks who never sleep, they are not competing with you to write the exam, because while you would be wasting some time in sleeping, they would be still studying. Thankfully, they are not doing that, just catching their praise. Now, anyway, next thing, that is examples we can take. Carcharodon, that is shark. Pristis, sawfish. Torpedo, electric ray. Now these electric rays, you see, they have a dorso-ventrally flattened body, just like a kite they look, okay. Shubham, for sharks, migration is as such not for breeding, and as such there are very few species, because some of them have been reported from the Winnipeg lake, but as such, for question point of view, we here in India, I don't think people know it, so here always the questions regarding chondrichthyes is that they are exclusively marine, so that's why I didn't go into that particular exception, okay. So but that is not for breeding at all. Anyways, so next thing, that is next examples: torpedo, then trigon, this is stingray, and last but not the least, one very important example, chimera, which I mentioned the other day. Chimera, this is called rabbit fish or rat fish, so many different names are for it, and this one is a connecting link between cartilage and bony fish. Cartilage and bony fish, okay. And here, if I mention the examples, some of them: labio, that is rohu, or otherwise carp also it is called; exocetus, flying fish. Then there is the betta, which is fighting fish. Pterophyllum, this is angel fish, and both of these fish are cultivated in the aquarium, so they are called aquarium fish, okay. So there's a long list, I'll stop here, okay. So anyway, I think this much will do about the Pisces, and usual questions will be from this part only, okay. So from there we can move on to the next superclass, that is Tetrapoda, okay. So next one, that is Tetrapoda, and in Tetrapoda the 4 classes that we are having, so there too I will take a comparative account, because usual questions once again are comparative. So just I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes, I think you can copy down the examples and be through with it, so that I can use the entire board then, okay. So just quickly copy down. And by the time people are copying down, they can certainly, in bony fish, they can remember some examples like salmon. Salmon is there, hilsa is there, salmon and hilsa. These two bony fish here, you can take, always think about the examples, they are also showing anadromous migration. That means they certainly in their breeding season, they migrate from ocean to the rivers. Okay, so those are the examples of anadromous migration. And in bony fish, there are examples of catadromous migration also. Catadromous would be opposite. That means the fish lives in the river, but during the breeding season, it moves from river to the marine habitat. And there you have the example of eels, anguilla. Okay, so even those examples you can think about. So we can now clear the board. Okay. So here one side I'll take the characters, whichever I am going to take, and the other 4 classes, that is amphibia, reptilia, aves and mammalia. Okay, so these 4 comparative tetrapods. Now first of all, if we talk about start with the habitat, so it is freshwater and terrestrial. So these are the first terrestrial vertebrates, you can say. Now these are terrestrial as well as aquatic. And when I write aquatic, that means both freshwater and marine. Aves more or less terrestrial, and mammals once again terrestrial, although there are some of them who have returned to water like whales, dolphins. So certainly we can also mention aquatic. Okay, and I said aquatic because there are river dolphins also. I think people, those who are from Bihar, they must be knowing this was also a question, which is the state animal of Bihar, that was river dolphin. Okay, so anyway, this is one thing about habitat. Then first let me mention exoskeleton. Exoskeleton. Now amphibians don't have any exoskeleton, no exoskeleton at all. Here there are keratinized scales, which I told you, which will be epidermal. Okay, keratinized scales. Here feathers and scales once again, same way, keratinized scales on their legs if you see. And in mammals it is hair, nails, hoof, horns. All this will come as part of the exoskeleton. Okay, so different mammals will be having it, of course, but hair of course is in all of them. Then if we endoskeleton, all of them have bony endoskeleton with at the articulation point cartilage, so we needn't write it, that will do. Okay, so then skin, or you can say cutaneous glands, we can mention if the skin is having glands or not. Okay, so cutaneous glands, this is once again important. So amphibians do have lot of glands, so mucus glands in the skin, mucus glands present. Now reptiles totally have non-glandular skin. Non-glandular skin, this is once again an important question. Birds also have non-glandular skin except for one gland at the tail end, that is the preen gland. So non-glandular skin except preen gland, which is at the tail end, by which they keep preening their feathers, putting oil on their feathers so that they waterproof it. And mammals, lot of glands, the sweat glands, sebaceous glands, and even some scent glands are also there. We sometimes think it is just the sweat which is giving the smell, but there are some scent glands as well, and that's why humans keep trying to curb it with using lot of deodorants. Then rest of the things we can mention, that is few more things, that is one is of course heart, two chambered was in fish. here it is 3-chambered. Reptiles 3-chambered except crocodiles, not to be forgotten. This is the favorite question of our NEET exam. Such easy question, but it is their favorite question. Okay, here it is completely 4-chambered, and here also 4-chambered. Okay. Then another aspect I can mention about kidneys. We have already mentioned kidneys are in all of them. So cloaca, where is cloaca present? Here in amphibians they have cloaca. Reptiles also have cloaca. Aves also have cloaca, but mammals cloaca is absent. But there is also an exception, except in egg-laying mammals. Egg-laying mammals. Okay. Then one point I can write about cranial nerves, number of cranial nerves. That means the nerves which are either coming out of the brain or reaching the brain. So cranial nerves in amphibians, these are 10 pairs. Reptiles 12 pairs. Birds once again 12 pairs, and mammals you must have studied in nervous system, we have 12 pairs. Okay, so cranial nerves. Then copulatory organ in males, sexes of course are separate. So copulatory organ in males, it is totally absent in case of amphibians. That is the reason that amphibians have to return to water to complete their life cycle, because if they release the gametes in the terrestrial habitat, they will dry up. So they have to return to water. The males are lacking copulatory organ. It is present in reptilians. In birds, once again it is absent, but they are terrestrial animals minded. So there it is the cloaca itself which is used to transfer the sperms into the female's cloaca. Okay, so here cloaca is used for sperm transfer. And mammals, of course, copulatory organ is present in the males. Okay, so this was there. Then next one, that is development, we can mention, or fertilization rather, that is also one important step, and then development. Okay, so fertilization and development, 2 points, and then we can call it a day. Fertilization here is external, that's why we just now mentioned they have to return to water, external, and in rest of them it is internal. Okay, development, once again here you see it is indirect, the tadpole will be coming out from the eggs, and in rest of them it is direct. And one more thing we can mention, that this group of animals, these are egg laying, so they are oviparous. Reptiles are also oviparous. Birds are oviparous. And this is one more interesting thing I want to put over here. This also was a question. Oviparous without exception. I told you when there is no exception, that also is an exception. So three animals in each option were given, and you were asked that which choose the option where all the animals mentioned are oviparous. So there was one where all the birds were mentioned, right? So they are all of them without exception oviparous. In reptiles we do have some examples like chameleon, which is viviparous. Some of the snakes, the sea snakes, they are viviparous, right? In mammals are viviparous, but once again you know there is exception. Viviparous except, we can mention the example here itself, that is platypus, and of course platypus is not the scientific name, that's a common name, ornithorhynchus otherwise it is, and the other one that is spiny anteater. Okay, these are egg-laying mammals. So this will do about their major characteristics, and lastly we can just put the examples and then we are through. Okay, so I'll rub these 2 points here. Examples: rana, that is frog; bufo, toad. Okay, here just now we mentioned chameleon. This is tree lizard, kelone. This is turtle, bungarus. This is a poisonous snake, cobra, bungarus. These all are there. Okay, aves, pavo. This is peacock, our national bird. Neophron, vulture. Aptenodytes. Just go through the NCERT examples, that many will do, otherwise there is no end to the examples, you know. Aptenodytes, this is penguin. Okay, and as far as mammals, 2 examples we have already mentioned. Some more we can put them here, like panthera. Panthera, this will be various: Panthera leo, Panthera tigris, Panthera pardus. So these all the carnivores, you know them. Then of course Balænoptera. Balænoptera is the blue whale, the largest animal. Blue whale. Delphinus, this is dolphin. And macaque or macaca, this is the monkey, rhesus monkey. Okay, so few things, I don't think this is most of the things we have done, but some of them you will see that as we go through the physiology chapters, because when we will start with our physiology, going through from digestion to the chemical coordination, and then in the 12th topic reproduction, so many of the terms will come over there. So because after all the entire syllabus you have to study for the NEET exam, so anything which is still left out will be part of the other chapters. Okay, so that will do, and with this we can end today's class, that is with Animalia. If you have any doubts you can put them up. Amphibians and reptiles. Amphibians I have not come across any, but as far as reptiles are concerned, during their development you might have studied that when a turtle, female turtle, comes out of the ocean and digs a hole in the sand in the beaches and lays the eggs. So some of the eggs will be what she will do is totally cover them with sand, and some of them will be slightly open. So as a result the temperature will vary, the one which are colder and one which are slightly warmer. So this will lead to develop different sexes. Okay, so even in crocodiles it happens, right? Other than NCERT, what else should we read to get around 330 plus? Yes, Seema, your main book of course will be NCERT, and even all the people, those who are from different other boards, do go through NCERT. You can download it from the CBSE site for free and read it. And apart from that, the previous year questions. I won't say any other book you are requiring, because through the questions, if some extra concept is there, that you can learn, and you can always ask us here in the doubt platform or on the Telegram platform which has been given to you, that you may be knowing the answer, but there is one option you don't know the meaning of it, you can ask even that. So by going through that you will learn that, and next time if it is a question you can easily solve it. Okay, so that's the main thing, because I always say that it is good to go through one book number of times rather than going through number of books once, because that doesn't help. So that's all for now. Thank you, students.